Hello everybody, and welcome back to the flight school campaign for the FA-18 Hornet. As you saw in my last video yesterday, you know that I'm more or less done with this particular campaign. I don't want to work on it anymore, but at the same time, I do want to continue to make DCS content. So I think what we're going to do is go ahead and finish playing through the campaign. I don't have any intentions of making any updates to it. But it has been uploaded to the DCS user files, so it hopefully will be available there in the next day or two. We're going to go ahead and hop into the FLIR tutorial for today's mission, so let's go ahead, hop in, and get through that.
We've gotten pretty good at dropping bombs using GPS, so now it's time to switch to something a bit more difficult, the targeting pod. It's a sophisticated system equipped with various tools to help you find, identify, and target units in the field. It comes with a high-resolution, high-magnification camera that can operate in both camera and infrared modes, allowing you to see in both light and dark. For today's mission, we're going to execute a mission similar to the first two, but this time we're going to use laser-guided bombs and missiles to take out our two trucks, and we're also adding a single main battle tank that will take out with an AGM-65 Maverick missile. Go ahead and open up the rearm page and load your aircraft as follows, working from the wings to the center. While we won't be using the 9X or 120C, we'll start carrying them from now on so you can get used to seeing them on the stores page, as well as carrying the extra weight. Request refueling.
Alright, so we'll fast forward through this part just to get to where we're armed.
The targeting pod is extremely useful for attack missions where you don't have exact coordinates for enemy units. It allows you to scan the battlefield from relative safety and search for units as you circle the area. Since it's located on the left side of the aircraft, you should start getting it into your head that your circling should always be to the left, as your own aircraft will likely block your view if you try to force it to look to the right while your aircraft is banking that way. The first thing we need to learn about is sensor control. There are 4 sensors of interest in our cockpit, and you already know all of them: the HUD, the 2 MDIs, and the AMPCD. There is a controller located on the throttle that allows us to manipulate certain pages called the Throttle Control Designator, or TDC, and when we're on a page like the air-to-air radar or the FLIR, we can use that control to move where things are pointed with the TDC. The thing we have to remember, though, is that the TDC can only control one thing at a time, so we have to make sure it's attached to the correct sensor. This is accomplished using the Sensor Control Switch, or SCS, which is a 4-way hat switch located on the control stick.
If you have one.
The 4 options are fore, aft, left, and right, which correspond to the HUD, left MDI, right MDI, and AMPCD respectively. For the lower screens, a diamond will appear in the top right of the screen to indicate that it is selected. For the HUD, a point will appear within the velocity vector so you'll know it's currently the active sensor. It's important to remember that this is how it works, because if you don't have the correct sensor selected, the TDC won't work as you expect. Before we can use the targeting pod, we need to first get it turned on. The normal startup process we learned will do this automatically, but the hot start for these lessons doesn't include that. Go ahead and turn on the FLIR using the switch on the panel next to your right leg, then we have to wait for the system to power up. On one of the MDIs, go to the TAC menu and select FLIR, then wait for the words, "Not timed out," to disappear. At the moment, the screen is still black because the camera is currently in the stowed position. To get it unstowed, we have 2 options. First, we can press the Velocity Vector Slave, or VVSLV, button, which will lock the camera to where the velocity vector is pointing. It won't look right here on the ground, but just understand it is an option that locks the camera forward, which is useful if you need to look at something in front of you quickly but the camera is turned off to the side and you need to recenter your display. The camera will keep moving as you do, though, which makes it hard to use in this mode. The second option is to make the HUD the sensor of interest using Sensor Control Switch, SCS, forward to select the HUD, then pressing the Throttle Control Designator, TDC, depress button to lock the targeting camera to wherever the velocity vector was pointing when you pressed the button. This is far more useful, as it locks the camera to a point on the ground that you choose by pressing the TDC button while pointing the velocity vector at it. Try both options, then press IP to continue. Now that you've tried both options, let's take another look at using the HUD to set the camera. Go ahead and use SCS forward and press TDC depress. At this point, we can use the TDC to move the camera's targeting point around on the HUD, and the diamond that represents the current targeting location will move as the camera does. Pick out one of the trees in the distance and place the diamond over it, then take a look at the camera to see how it's working. You can adjust the brightness and contrast settings using the MDI knobs to make the image appear as you desire and get a better picture. As you can see, in addition to the actual image, there are several more elements included on the screen for your information. The north indicator points in the direction of north. The current coordinates of where the camera is pointed can be very helpful, either in relaying location information to other units, or even setting up GPS-guided bombs, though there is a far more efficient way we'll talk about in a bit. Most of the screen elements can be added or removed via the settings button at the bottom right. You can peruse that on your own time. The camera itself has a very high-powered magnification ability, which can be accessed either by pressing the zoom buttons on the MDI, or by using the radar elevation control while the current sensor of interest is controlling the targeting pod. The first option is a bit cumbersome, but you should still know how to use it. At the top left of the screen is a button that sets the field of view and has 3 settings: wide, medium, and narrow. The wide setting only has 1 zoom level, but the other 2 each have 2. Test out the various combinations of field of view and zoom settings to get an idea of how they work, then press IP when you're ready to move on. While this is certainly useful, there is another, more convenient way to control the zoom: the radar elevation controller. When the sensor of it, the great thing about the targeting pod is that, unless you tell it to do otherwise, it stays locked on the exact spot on the ground where you last left it, so even if you have to maneuver to avoid anti-aircraft fire, or just need to reposition, it stays on target. There are still several more things we need to learn about the pod, but the last thing we need to learn here on the ground is about laser codes. Several of the bombs and missiles available for the Hornet use laser detectors to home in on targets. This, of course, requires that there be a laser to home in on. There are 2 methods to get this done. The first is the Laser Spot Tracker, LST, which involves another unit, usually someone on the ground, pointing a laser at a target for us, and we just need to use the correct laser code for our weapon to find it. This won't be used as much as the other method, but it works the same way and just relies on another party to provide targeting for us. The primary method we'll be using is the laser equipped on the targeting pod itself, though. The Laser Target Designator/Ranger, LTD/R, equipped on the pod fires our own laser at whatever the camera is looking at, which provides us our own laser guidance for weapons that use that method of targeting. If you look toward the bottom right of the screen, you'll see an LST and LTD/R along with 2 numbers. Each of these correspond to the current code being used by the targeting system. Depending on which type you're using for a mission, you'll set the code using the UFC button to the right, selecting the option you want to change, then inputting the desired 4-digit code. Of course, the fact that there's a code for the laser means that we have to make sure our weapons know that code, too, so now we need to configure our weapons to find our laser. On the stores page, find the GBU-12 we equipped for this mission, and you'll notice that under the station there are 4 X's displayed. When you see this under a laser-guided bomb, it means you haven't assigned it a code. We do this by first pressing the code button on the bottom left, then pressing the code option that appears on the UFC menu. Enter the code that corresponds with the type of laser the Maverick missiles we'll be using for this mission can also work on laser guidance, so we need to enter the codes in for them as well. Select the Maverick option, then...
I don't remember him asking me for a Maverick. What did I miss here? Oh, Station 3 is supposed to have...
Press UFC a code and enter the same code as before. The Maverick will now look for the laser when armed and activated. Now set up your harms as we did in the last lesson, get yourself in the air, and fly to waypoint 1 for further instructions.
Request rearming. Copy.
I think I might have assumed some things and screwed myself up on that. Hold on a second. Yeah, laser guided bombs. So let's... There's like Mavericks here. Mavericks. Let's see. Code 6. Alright, so then we have laser guided bombs on the code, Mavericks on the code. Arms should be pre-briefed. Turn off our air to ground and get ourselves in here. So yeah, this is the flight school campaign, so there's going to be a lot of dialogue and talking and instruction, and it's not going to be the most action-packed thing in the world because, you know, you got to learn how to use this stuff, and there's a lot of details that you need to know to be able to do that. So, you know, for these videos, I do my best to kind of fast forward through things to when I can, but I also want to make sure that the information is mostly in there so that anybody who is trying to use these videos rather than the actual campaign itself for instruction gets some kind of information out of it. So. My joystick's starting to fail. The buttons on it are starting to fail, so the joystick command I had, the joystick key I had for gear up is working. And we'll fast forward to waypoint 1.
As before, arm your weapons, get into air-to-ground mode, and select your harm. Once you're close enough to ensure a kill, execute the attack the same as last time, then we'll talk about bombing the trucks.
As we did in the last seed mission that we did. And the pilot, the alt. Hold on a second, we need to get the EW page in and the SA page in so we can see threat rings and all that cool stuff. And then now we just need to close the distance. Rapid issues there. Okay. I gotta remember that I gotta remember the time compression.
Good work. Now that the air defense has been neutralized, we need to find our trucks, since we don't have coordinates this time. We know they're around waypoint 2, though, and this allows us to use another useful function of waypoint target designation. Go ahead and designate waypoint 2 as the target on either the HSI or SA page, and the camera will slew over to that spot. Verify that the diamond is on the screen with the targeting pod, indicating it is the sensor of control, then use the SCS to point to that same screen again. The reticle should change to a pair of horizontal lines with a dot in the middle, indicating we've switched to area track mode. After you do that, be sure to undesignate the waypoint as a target. If you don't, when we cycle through the targeting modes for the pod, it will jump back to waypoint 2 rather than stay where you put it, and you'll have to start over. Just press the TGT button in the top right of the screen to undesignate it. You can use the TDC to slew and either the push buttons or radar elevation control to zoom in and out to get a better view. The trucks are marked with red smoke, so find that first, and the trucks should be easy to spot. Additionally, there are a few options for changing how the image looks to make objects stand out better depending on conditions. At the top, you can swap between TV and IR modes, and then the IR mode has two options at the bottom to change what color hot items show up as. If you're struggling to find the trucks, test out the TV and IR modes and scan the area around waypoint 2. Okay, we'll be dropping these bombs in auto mode, which isn't quite the same as the GPS bombing we did before. To get our bombs on target, we need to fly straight and level over them, following the guidance of the continuously computed release point that will be shown on the HUD as we pass over the trucks. It will take 2 passes to get both trucks, since we can only target one thing with the laser at a time. This specific scenario isn't realistic, but we want you to get as much practice dropping laser bombs as possible, so you're going to do it twice. Slew the reticle of the targeting pod to a point just under the image of the first truck you want to target. The reason for this is that the targeting pod isn't able to determine that there is actually a truck there, and it's pointing it where it calculates the ground to be based on its current position and angle. If you point it straight at the middle of the truck, it will actually aim slightly past it, and you might miss. To ensure a good hit, point the reticle at the ground under the truck, then press TDC depress to set the target point for our bomb. You'll know it's correct because the reticle will change to a diamond, and range information will appear on the screen, as well as the HUD. Once that's done, press I/P for further instructions. The last part of all this is setting up the laser itself to paint the target. First, flip the LTD/ART switch next to the FLIR switch on your right to arm. This switch will only stay in the arm position if your master arm switch is set to arm. This switch resets itself after every use, so you have to remember to do this step for every run. The laser won't work if you don't, and you'll miss. Another thing you need to know about are the 2 different laser modes, auto and manual. The system defaults to auto, and it takes care of the laser part for you. There shouldn't be any reason to use manual mode aside from a personal desire to do so. Just to be thorough, you can press the trigger button on the right side to enter manual mode, which will require you to hold down the trigger on the stick to fire the laser. Use at your own risk. Position yourself several miles away to give yourself some room to turn around and get lined up for your run. Select your GBU 12, which should bring up the familiar vertical line which will steer you to your target. As you approach, keep an eye on your targeting pod and adjust the target point if required to ensure it's directly on the truck. From a distance, it's difficult to be super accurate, so feel free to make adjustments with the TDC. Along the right side of the HUD will appear additional information to help you with your bombing run. First, you should see FLIR to indicate that it's the active targeting system. Below that will be the bombing mode, auto in this case. A timer will appear below that counts down to your weapon release time. Distance to target is the last item. At about 5 seconds before release, a horizontal line similar to what we saw with the harm will appear, but this time rather than us climbing up to it, it will come down to your velocity vector as you approach the release point. When it starts moving down, hold down the weapon release until it passes through and the bomb disappears from your inventory. It should be relatively obvious the bomb was released, as the aircraft will jerk a bit and you'll have to retrim to stay level. Another great thing about the targeting pod is confirming kills. Since you're already staring at it with the camera, keep on flying until the target is destroyed. You may need to bank left or right to keep it in view, however, because the pod can't look directly to the rear. Once the first truck is hit, move the reticle to the other truck, circle around and repeat the process, then we'll talk about using the Maverick on the tank. Okay, the trucks are toast. Now for the last target, the tank. The Maverick we have on board is a great tool for taking out armor at a distance. It has a couple of different modes to use it, but since we're using the targeting pod today, we'll use it in that mode. We already put in the laser code, so we just need to point the laser at the tank, make sure the Maverick sees it, and fire it off. To do this, select the Maverick, which should bring up a screen with a sort of HUD and a big X in the middle. If it doesn't, ensure you have your laser code entered and press it again until it shows up. Once that's done, scan the area and look for the orange smoke we've popped near the tank. Once you find it, press IP for further instructions. We need to get the targeting pod pointed over near the tank so we can get it slewed right on top of it. It would take a while to move the targeting pod from where it is, so we're going to put it in bore sight mode by using the undesignate keybind to remove the current target point, then either pressing VVSLV on the MDI or just double tapping the undesignate to lock the pod to the velocity vector. Now maneuver the aircraft to place the velocity vector over the smoke and press TDC depress to set the new target point, then find the tank with the pod just like the trucks.
Compress through that. Just want to give myself some room to look, you know? So he's back over here.
All that's left is to get the Maverick to track the laser. If it's currently locked to the center, it's still caged, so press the cage/uncage keybind to unlock it so it can track the laser. You should see the X on the screen moving in relation to where the tank is, assuming you have the targeting pod pointed at it. Activate the laser with the LTD/R switch again so the laser will turn on. If it won't fire, that's probably why. Then once you see it in range on the HUD, and that's the tank. Go ahead and egress to waypoint 3.
Alright, well, we got all that done. Let's, get our stuff. Get ourselves up to about 15,000 feet. And we'll de-alt it. I'm doing 15,000 just to make sure we clear the mountains. Alright, times 10 is about all I need. Verify again. Unfortunately, we have to go in this direction before we are able to find the tack in, and then we can use it for auto navigation. Report inbound, 10 miles. Yeah, this is that's just giving us a reminder that at 50 miles you report inbound. And then do the see you at 10 call at 10 miles. You should be at 250 knots at 2,000 feet to enter the Marshall stack, which we don't really practice anymore after the practice of the last two missions. So, yeah. Oh, hold on.
And execute case 1 recovery.
We're in the process of trying to slow down. So you would approach the carrier at 250 knots in a Marshall stack at around the 250 knots at 2,000 feet.
Altitude. Altitude.
Set. Obviously, I'd love to turn my graphics up. That would be great. Even at this low graphics setting here, I get a lot of FPS lag, especially close to the ground. So I'm really hoping I'm going to be able to get the new graphics card soon and make everything look smooth. Even if I can't turn up the graphics, just having it to where I can fly close to the ground at a reasonable graphics setting would be really nice. struggling to get the proper feel for the stick with the curves that I have on here right now. I had to turn the curves way up so that I could do the aerial refueling in a reasonable way, but problem with as I've said before, the only problem with doing landings this way is that you're not going to get the angled deck thing here, so
Good trap.
it's not the best of traps. Okay. Now we just need to get ourselves parked, and we can move on to the next mission. Yeah, because right here on the ground, like, I don't know how it looks on the screen for you guys. We can check it. Yeah, I mean, in 2D it looks slightly laggy, but in VR it's like so definitely need a better graphics card for this if I want to make it a really good experience. Ideally, we just get over here, we'll stop, and then we can do this.
Good job. Tomorrow we'll learn.
All right, so yeah, helmet mounted display is tomorrow's lesson. So let's get back to the menu here. Hit the end mission button, and we should see J Hammocks. So again, thank you very much for watching. Be sure to come back for tomorrow's episode. Hit the like button to help the video spread out. Subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Join as a member for early access to videos, among other perks, or you can just leave YouTube's version of a tip with the thanks button. So again, thank you for watching. Be sure to come back for future lessons, and I'll see you then. And I gotta alt tab out of this. Doot, doot, doot.